All right, guys, let's talk a little bit more about color theory today. Going back to what we started with at the very beginning of the chapter, we're going to talk about the color wheel. And we know that the color wheel is a way for us to understand the relationships between colors. It is a system of understanding color and how it works. When it comes to hair color theory, as I talked to you guys about before, when we're using chemicals on the hair, we are physically altering the eumelanin and the pheomelanin inside of the cortex. And simultaneously, we end up messing with the keratin too. That's a slightly different conversation about hair strength. But when we are using permanent color surfaces, no matter what we do with the hair, we're going to be exposing the color that lives inside of the natural hair while we're trying to deposit a different color on top of it. And because of that reason, we have to understand how to balance the colors that we're revealing that we don't want to see. Or on the opposite side of that, with those colors that we're revealing, do we want to just neutralize them or do we want to enhance them? Do we want to work with the warmth and make the color warmer? But either way, just looking at this color wheel, this little umbrella of a rainbow, will help you understand what you need to do with the hair that you're working on just based on the 6 colors that we're looking at here. So let's take it back to primary colors to begin with. Primary colors are the simplest building block of all color. All color that exists in the world is made out of these 3 colors, blue, red, and yellow. You cannot break these colors down into a smaller unit. They are the atomic level of color, essentially. Now we know that if I combine 2 primary colors together, I make a secondary color. If I combine blue and red, I make violet. If I add red and yellow together, I make orange. And then if I add blue and yellow together, I make green. And you can see this on the color wheel. The colors that are made by the 2 primary colors are squished in the middle of the sandwich in between those 2 primaries. The secondary color is always encased by the 2 primary colors that make it. So if you're ever just drawing a blank on what you'd need to do to create a true orange, remember, orange is a combination of yellow and red, and they exist together on the same side of the color wheel. Same thing over here. If I add yellow and blue together, the thing that exists in the middle is green. And what I want you guys to know is that colors that are adjacent or next to each other in the color wheel blend together really, really well. So if you're thinking about fantasy colors or gradients, or you're just using even natural hair colors that have a slight blue or violet base, if you're going from blue to violet to red, that's an easy transition. If I'm going from red to orange to yellow, that will also blend in together because these are all made of the same tones. There's always a red element, obviously, in red. Purple is made out of red and blue. So I can go from a blue-red to a red to orange because it exists between these 2. This can become a really smooth gradient. What we know about the color wheel, though, is that colors that are opposite of each other on the color wheel, rather than adjacent, if they are directly across from each other, these are complementary colors. And when we add them together, we make that neutral in the center. And if you look at these colors that are right across from each other on the color wheel, you see that they're just a combination of all 3 of our primary colors together. For example, if I add together purple and yellow, what I'm essentially doing is adding blue and red to my yellow. Blue plus red plus yellow equals neutral. Same thing over here. If I'm contrasting or neutralizing orange tones with the blue, I know that orange is made out of yellow plus red plus blue equals neutral. And it works the same way with green. If you think about green rather as just green and as instead 1 part blue and 1 part yellow, and you see that green is right across from red on the color wheel, again, blue plus yellow plus red equals neutral. So whatever tone that you're working with, if you're trying to eliminate it, look at what's directly across from it on the color wheel, because you need all 3 primary colors together in equal proportions to create a true neutral. Now, we're not always trying to neutralize hair, and that's something that, I think that soft neutral blondes and ash blondes, and we know like the silver blondes, they're very popular now, and they have been for a few years, but sometimes people want warm highlights. Sometimes people want more caramel or even fiery red highlights, and that is represented on the color wheel as well. I know that if I have an orange base, I can put red on top of it pretty easily because these colors blend together really well. If I have a red base to the hair and I want to put violet on it, that's a fairly easy transition as well. But if I'm trying to go from yellow to lavender, there's a lot of steps in between that I have to travel through. And if I don't make that proper journey and try to go from just one to the other, I end up with an accidental neutral. So we're gonna pick up this conversation when I bring out the level system in this next part of the video, and I also have us look through our Joico Lumishine catalog of our swatch book so that you can see what the colors that we have are that are available in our line, and then how we take this system of understanding color and apply it to our formulations. Okay guys, so the next thing that we're going to talk about is the level system. The level system can be a little bit harder to grasp the concept of than just general color theory, because we're not talking about the color itself, whether it is warm or cool or what it's made out of. We're specifically talking about how much color is inside of the formula that you're creating. So this level finder swatch that I've talked to you guys about, this is mostly about figuring out how light or dark the hair is, and then on the other side of that, what color will be revealed during the color processing when we understand how light or dark the hair is. And so I know that's a lot of information in just those couple of sentences. I want to break it down using a neutral swatched card. So this is, and let me see if you guys can see this. Yes, you can. Okay. So this is a swatch card from the Joico Lumishine line. This is a permanent color swatch card, and you can see these are all neutral colors. We know that a neutral color is made out of equal parts of the primary colors. So this is an easy one to demonstrate with because these are just combinations of all three primary colors to create a true neutral. These swatches are neither cool nor warm. They're an equal balance of all of the primary colors. This is all technically the same color. It's just how much of the color is there. We know that neutral is a combination, again, of blue, red, and yellow. It's how much of those primary colors am I putting into my blank formula. If I think of my empty container of color, my empty tube of color as just a white base, how much color am I adding into that white base to create the intensity that I'm looking for? So the level system really only has to do with how much color is in your formula. And one way to think about that, I have my level system of 1 to 10. We know that 1 is the darkest and 10 is the lightest. So if we're looking at these neutrals, we know that the neutrals are, it makes a brown in this case. This one end at the bottom though, you can see is a black. It says natural black, and in your color review packet, there was a question that asked you if you mixed all of the primaries together in high concentration, what would be the resulting color? And that's black because of the amount of pigment that you're putting in there. But either way, just going back to this level system notion from a range of 1 to 10, if I have a level 10 neutral, it's just a little bit of that mix of brown in there. Think of that as 1 dot of brown. Level 9, think of it as 2 drops. Level 8, you have 3 drops of the same color, and so on and so forth. 7 would be 4 drops of the same concentration. 5 becomes 5. 4 becomes 6. Because I'm getting darker here. I know it's a little counterintuitive. It feels like 10 should be the darkest and 1 should be the lightest, but it's not that way. You can just see though, as I'm working my way down these levels, it's the same color. I'm just adding more and more of it to the base. So a level 3 compared to a level 10, I have 7 times the amount of that same color in a dark formula at a level 3 that I do at a level 10, which is a very, very light formula. Again, level 2 here would look like 8 molecules of the same color. And then level 1, got an extra line, is the highest concentration that you have. There's a ton of those molecules in there. And if you look at it this way and compare it to your swatch card, it helps make it a little bit more sense. These are all the same ratio of primary colors mixed together. It's just how many drops of that formula am I putting in my base. Same color, just how much am I using of it. Let's look at a couple more swatch cards that aren't neutral to help that drive in the point a little bit more. So in different color lines, or most color lines, there will be colors that have 2 letters listed behind them. Whereas before we were working with neutrals, and the symbol for the neutral in this color line is just an N. So if you were working through the line, you could use a 1N or a 2N, and we just know it's how dark it is or how light it is, and then what the color is that's made out of the primary colors that we're working with. If you have, however, a color that has 2 letters behind the level, for instance, we'll call it like a level 5 NC. What this means is that there's 2 different concentrations of color, and whatever letter is first is the primary concentration of this color. So this would be a level 5. That's how light or dark it is. The number represents the level, and then the letters represent the color itself. And this is telling me this is a level 5 neutral copper, because in Joico systems, C stands for copper. So I know, and the ratio for Joico is that this is a 70% neutral base with a 30% copper base. The letter that is the primary concentration of the color comes first, and then the copper afterward. And so if I'm breaking this down into primary colors again, I know that that neutral is made out of, oh, that's purple. Purple's not a primary color. That neutral is made out of red, yellow, and blue. The copper is made out of just red and yellow, because copper is a form of orange. So breaking down this color into the primary colors, if we turn that into a form of math, you can see that neutral copper is really 2 parts red, 1 and 1, 1 part blue, because there's only 1 blue in the neutral, and 2 parts yellow. So if I put another neutral on here, if I put something that had an extra little drop of the blue, I wouldn't be able to create warmth, because I would be balancing out these 2 molecules of warmth. Here, because I'm using a neutral plus a copper, you can see I have 4 warm colors against 1 cool color. I am really upping the warmth. And the result of that, as you guys are going to see, are these warm browns. I'm adding to the neutral extra pieces of red and yellow to go from that neutral base to something a little bit warmer. And let me grab the swatch card from the neutrals. Let's compare right here. All right. I'm going to double check that you guys can see me. Yeah, you can. So let's compare right here. This is a level 5 neutral. This is a level 6 neutral. This is a level 5 natural copper. This is a level 6 natural copper. These are the same level of lightness or darkness. These reflect the same amount of light. They just have different color bases to them. This has more natural copper formula than the level 9 NC does. This has more neutral formula in it than the level 9 or 10 neutral does. They're the same mix of color per swatch. It's just how much of the color is in there. And you can see just by adding a bit of orange to my neutral base, I can enhance that so much. I can make that orange so much brighter. And how that affects your color placement, toning, and the color that you're using, we're gonna get into that in just a couple more minutes. But before that, I wanna show you some more fun swatches. One of the really beautiful things about the Joico brand is that they have some colors in their permanent colors that mock the intensity and give the intensity of fantasy color. Look at these reds. These are the RR series. So this is a double red. You have a 70% concentration of an intense red and then a 30% concentration of a bright red. So one is more of like a dark, with maybe a little bit of a violet base, but it's just really, you know that you're going double in with the red formula. So this level 6, knowing that a level 6 is going to be lighter than a level 3, this has less red pigment mixed into it than the level 3 does, but it's the same concentration of red. So if we're using on the level 6, let's call this 3 drops of red. Here we're using 4 drops of red, and here I'm using 5 drops of red. Same color, just different amounts of the color. They also have these blue ash tones that are really beautiful blue-based silvers. There's a violet swatch in here that I actually used on my own natural root, the 3VV, the 3 double violet. They have a really rich double copper as well that mimics like Florence and the Machine, the bright orange hair. A little bit on the almost looks artificial side, but it's that barrier between really natural and a little bit on the fantasy color, and I'm excited for us to be able to play with those on the floor together, or for those of you who come in to grab product from me, we'll be able to experiment with that as well. But I hope that showing you the swatches, talking to you about concentration of color, light versus dark, intensity of color, helps you understand how the color wheel, and then the measurement of lightness to darkness come together to create our formula. If not, we'll keep working on it, but I'm hoping that this has helped. So yesterday I taught you guys how to do the vertical slice technique, this really fun, really bold, kind of throwback, kind of coming back technique of creating chunky, stripy highlights. And one of the reasons that I did this was so that you could see the contrast between the different levels of hair. Remember, I didn't put any new hair in here. All I did was work with the base that already existed, and I used lightener to remove color from the hair that ended up revealing the contributing pigment when the hair was lighter. So I went from this darker brown color, and then using lightener, I slowly removed color from the hair until it looked like this. And this is a really great way for you guys to see the difference in contrast and the difference in brightness and darkness. Let me grab my level finder swatch, which is right here. Remember, this has nothing to do with the color of the hair, which we're just trying to see, based on the amount of light that's being reflected from the hair, how light or dark the hair is. So let's start with this little chunk of hair in the front. I'm going to do what's known as the lift and bump technique. So I'm taking this section of hair and then I'm bumping it up toward the light. The reason for that, as I've mentioned before, is if I hold the hair straight down, you can see there's some extra shadow that gets cast on it. So you really want to bump that up toward the light. And then I'm going to take my swatch finder card and try to see, based on these swatches, how light or dark do I think the hair is. And I know that down here, this hair is not as dark as a level 3, not even a level 4. When I'm holding the level 5 and 6, it seems like it exists somewhere between there, and that's fine. Level 5.5 hair, if you're working with that, you can mix 6 and 5 together, divide it in 2, it makes an average 5.5. But either way, I can tell she's between, or he, this is one of the Tarzans. No, this is one of my Miss Janes, sorry. But she's existing between a 5 and a 6 here. Maybe closer to a 5 now that I'm looking at it, but it's definitely a warm 5 to a 6 tone. Now, if I look back here, I can see behind a 5 and a 6, the contributing pigment that's going to be revealed is red and orange. Now, if I turn this back around and I look at these pieces that we put the lightener on, I now need to see what is the closest lightness on this swatch. Now, obviously, this lighter blonde color is much lighter than a level 6 or a level 7. But look at that level 8. The 10 is definitely lighter. The 9 is definitely lighter. But the 8, when I bump that hair up, even though the 8 is warmer, this 8 here, the swatch finder card is fairly neutral, and this 8 is warmer. When I'm thinking about how light or dark the hair is, this hair is definitely a level 8. And when you switch this over to see what the contributing pigment is at a level 8, boom, it's gold. And this hair is definitely gold. So if you're ever like, oh, I don't know if it's a 5 or a 6, flip that swatch card over and you see this hair is like a true yellow orange. It is existing between the gold and the yellow here Boom, level 8. And now I know, based on this contributing pigment that has been revealed, what I want to do with the color next. And I'm going to be demonstrating 2 different toning techniques on this mannequin so that you can see the difference between using one color of toner versus the other at the same level. On this side of the hair, I'm going to be using a level 8 cool-based toner, an ash toner, because ash is a blue-based toner. Orange plus ash, orange plus blue, we know makes a neutral. So we're going to try to neutralize this half of the head so you can see what a level 8 neutral looks like against this level 6 that's a little bit of a warm color. On the other side of the head, I'm going to use a level 8 copper. So I'm going to add warmth to the warmth that already exists here and give this mannequin some more beautiful looking kind of fiery highlights that are still on the natural side, but much bolder for sure than doing the neutral. And then you'll be able to see they're the same level of color, the same level of brightness or darkness, but the color that's within that concentration will be different. On this side of the head, I'm going to be using an orange-based toner. On this side of the head, I'm going to be using a blue-based toner. This side of the head, the bright pieces will be enhanced. This side of the head, the bright pieces will be neutralized. And I think it's going to be really fun to see. And then once it's all on there, we'll see what I want to do to cover it all up and do a color correction, because I'm not going to be able to let her sit like this for very long. That said, I'm excited to play and to show you guys the results. So I'm going to pop the camera off and I'll be back in a minute. So I just looked through my swatch finder cards to figure out what formula I wanted to use for the warm side versus the cool side. And I wanted to show you guys how the Joico color swatches are really put together and why I'm deciding on the formula that I'm planning to use. So there are a couple of different options for cool-based toner through Joico, for blue-based, cool-based silvers, or neutralizers for orange colors, but they have very different levels of concentration in blue in them. For example, these are the natural or neutral ashes. You'll see they're listed as NA. Remember, the first letter next to that number, the number is the level. The first letter is what 70% of the color concentration will be, and then the second letter is the 30% of the color concentration. So an NA color is going to be 70% N and 30% A. 70% mix of all 3 primary colors, and then 30% mix of blue. So I'm adding red plus yellow plus blue and plus blue. So there's 1 extra drop of blue compared to the neutral. I'm just adding a little bit of coolness. And what do I know about a level 8? It has that yellow, orange, gold. What do I need to get rid of the yellow, orange, gold? A little bit of blue. On the other side here, these are the blue silvers, and you can tell these are truly cool silver bases, and these have no neutral base to them whatsoever. These are pure blues. And so if I put this against my orange, I know that I'm going to be able to create an intense neutral, or even maybe a little bit of a silvery blonde or a mushroom brown, depending on how well this blue deposits, on top of the warm to create that neutral. But these are still, they're still technically both cool tones. It's just that this one has a neutral base with the blue mixed in, and this is a pure blue base. So depending on how neutral you want the hair to be, you have to consider both of these options. Same thing over here with the warm tones that I'll be putting on the other side of the head. These have a neutral base as well. These are the neutral coppers, 70% neutral, 30% copper base. I know that copper is a very orange tone, so if I'm breaking this down into primary colors again, I have yellow plus red plus blue from the neutral, and then from the copper, I have a lot of orange. So let's think of it as yellow and red again. So I have 2 parts red, 2 parts yellow, and 1 part blue. And knowing that I'm adding yellow and red or orange onto an orange base, what do you think the result is going to be? Warm plus warm equals very warm. So this is going to have an intensity to it that will be much brighter and much more intense than the neutral effect happening on the other side, because warm plus warm is an enhancement of the saturation, whereas warm plus cool is going to be more of a neutral effect. There are double coppers in this line, or double coppers. They're called the CC line, and those are the ones I was mentioning a few seconds ago about being very, very intense on the border of fantasy color, but I secretly love them.